This is a 1961 GMC K1500, and while working on the brakes, I ran into this. There's a lot of grease in here. Grease and brakes don't mix, and it looks like maybe we have a seal that's gone bad here. And that's why, and that's where all this grease is coming from. So that's another problem. Looking at the drum, we can see, yep, full of grease. If I put new brakes on there, it's just going to ruin them with the grease. So I've got to fix that first. While I'm waiting on parts to get here, I'm going to go ahead and take this axle out and take a look at the wheel bearings and see if I need to order those as well. That shit smells nice. Hey, that doesn't look good. Well, I got the axle out, which was pretty easy after looking at the manual whenever it says strike the center of it to loosen it, which did that very efficiently. Everything looks okay here, although I'm still puzzled as to why some of these, well, one of them was a bolt and the rest of them were nuts on studs. And some of the studs came out, some of the nuts came off. Not really sure what's going on with that, but here's the axle. Doesn't look too bad here, but coming on down, got a whole bunch of rust. And some right here. I'm guessing maybe whenever I pulled that out, it dragged some of the rust that this was on into that. Or it could be that the bottom of that differential has water in it and rust and everything. So yet something else I'm going to have to take apart and at least change the oil in it. And, you know, if there's a bunch of rust in there, I might need to take that whole carrier assembly out and clean it up. But let me get the wheel bearings out now, see how bad those are. Alright, so I've got the hub pulled off. And I actually had to use a puller for that. Normally it should just slide right off after you take off the nut securing it. But the reason it was stuck and the reason it's leaking is all this rust right along here where the oil seal sits. So that rust was keeping me from pulling it off, and it also has such a rough surface that it doesn't get a good seal, and the differential fluid just leaks past it, and you can see where it's got all into here. So I have to clean all this out and then sand that down or do something to get rid of that rust so we can have a good oil seal. All right, well, I took a Scotch-Brite pad and some WD-40 and got this cleaned up as best I could. I don't catch a fingernail or anything on that, so I think we're probably good there. The whole spindle, or axle shaft, whatever this is called, cleaned up pretty nicely. It's not perfect, and even like feeling underneath where that other surface is, I can definitely feel a little bit of irregularities compared to this, and I think that's just where the truck has been. I mean, the entire weight of it is on these spindles, and I think that's just where, you know, it kind of wore a little bit of metal away, but hopefully not enough to cause a leak, because I think this is all part of this rear end. So to replace this, I'd have to replace the whole thing, and we're not going to do that. So hopefully this is good enough. $455,860. Well, at least we got the right part. All right, well, I got the seal removed. That was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And this is the inner bearing race. This feels smooth as silk. So there's nothing, there's no gouges or anything. That looks pristine. The inside of this hub looks spectacular. I mean, there's a little bit of rust here, but it really doesn't matter. I think this groove is the stop for the oil seal. I'll have to press it back in there, but so far this looks pretty good. I'm going to flip this over and look at that bearing race on the other side. I'm going to get the wheel bearings cleaned up. I don't know, we may not need to replace those. All right, so this is the outer wheel bearing race. It's definitely got some more, we'll say, character to it, but this is still very smooth. I think this is probably okay. I'll look at the actual bearings whenever I get them cleaned up, but for what we're going to use this for, I think this will be fine. Just need to clean and repack the bearings, install the new seal, and one of these, actually I think it's this one, the thread started coming off while I was cleaning it. So I think I'm going to have to pull that stud out. I don't know why there's studs here, or there's a mix of studs and bolts. I don't know why they did that. And I don't know why they're different lengths. So I may take all those out and go all to bolts. I'll just have to look up and see exactly what they have. Of course, these are the lug studs, which look all right. There was one here that, it's kind of hard to see there, but I'm gonna have to clean. Yeah, some of these I'm gonna have to clean the threads off. That one actually looks damaged a bit. But one thing at a time. So these studs are, the threads there are just about gone. Most of these came out, these didn't. So I'm gonna try and get the rest of these out because I've got new bolts. I'm not gonna go with studs anymore. But this is going to be quite the challenge. Supposedly, if you can thread a couple of nuts on, then you can jam them together to try and pull the stud out without breaking something. Which, as dirty as these things are, that, this one might work. Let's start with this one. We can always upgrade. Get that one down on there tight. And supposedly get the second nut on here tight. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Don't want to warp the hub with the vise. All right. Now, where's my, there it is. That's sunk in there. And supposedly take this out and it should take the entire stud out. But no, it just slips this off the vise. Crap. Oh wait, something's happening. Now, did that turn the stud or? Nope, that's just turning both nuts. Alright. Man, these nuts are trash. Gotta be a better way to hold this. That's got it. That has got it. Perfect. Well, okay. That works too. Perfect. Let's try the locking pliers method on this one since it's already boogered anyway. And get a persuader. Is that working? Or not? Yep, that's why. Might have to clean up the threads. Look at all that thread that came out. I think the threads are so messed up, this isn't going to work. There's give there that shouldn't happen. Yeah, that thing's just spinning now. Wait, there it goes. Got it, got it, got it. Oh yeah. Goodness. All right. That is trash. Okay. Now that got those studs out, let me make sure that my bolts that I ordered actually fit. And I'll have to clean all that out a bit. A lot of dirt in there, but they do work. This is dirt packed into here, so I'm going to put a screw in it and then pull the screw out with a hammer. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Good Lord. is that one so tight? I'm gonna leave that one in there so I remember it and go get another bolt. I have to come back to that one. That's another one that needs work. All right, so these two need more work, which I will come back to in a bit. I'd say we're ready to go on the truck. So I cleaned up these wheel bearings using my favorite cheap solvent, gasoline. And this is the inner bearing. And I mean, it's not too bad, but I did notice there's some wear along here. I can't tell if that play is acceptable in there or not. And you know, we can see some wear around here. And let me get over here to the light. And then I'm not sure how well this will show, but you can definitely see on the rollers. Get a better angle here. Yeah. How this is kind of cloudy and that's kind of shiny. So you can definitely see some wear on these rollers. And some of them I kind of looked at a little bit closer. And some of these rollers, like right here, maybe you can see that, but that's got a little bit of pitting in there. And, you know, I still really am not sure, you know, what constitutes, you know, go, no go on these. So I decided to look at the outer wheel bearing. And I can already tell just by looking at it here, this thing looks brand new. And judging by how bad this has been chewed up by somebody, was in there before probably replacing this bearing. And I mean, look at that. That thing's really had somebody with the wrong tool going at that. But this one, let me take this underneath the light over here. Yeah, this one, I mean, there's a little bit of wear with it. But again, I don't know how much is too much. I was thinking about maybe keeping this one and ordering another one, but I mean, the things are like 20 bucks. And it's going to cost a lot more than $20 in time to get it out again. So I guess while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and replace both of them. And I'm going to try and get some, see if I can find that, because if I try to bend those tabs down again, like somebody's already broke off that one, and get a nut that hasn't been butchered. I've got a new oil seal for the inside, and also got a new inner wheel bearing. The old one was probably okay. I might have said that, but it did have some kind of chips and stuff in it. This one is new. Came in the box, but I guarantee you this was manufactured a long time ago. Anyway, before I can put the hub on, I have to put the inner wheel bearing in because the seal will actually go on top of it. And before I put the bearing in, I have to, yeah, that would go on there like that. But before I put the bearing in, I have to pack it. And we used to do that by hand, by just getting a glob of grease and working it in there. But I bought this fancy bearing packer, and we're going to see if this is worth anything or not. So, let's see what the instructions say. Fill cup with bearing, wait a second. When cup is empty, the spring at the bottom of the piston breaks vacuum. Remove extension knob from thread, from spool and thread on stem. Pull knob to remove piston. Guess this is the extension knob we're talking about. Okay. All right. Fill cup with bearing grease to within 1 inch of cup, 1.5 inch for small vise opening. Well, 1 inch would be about right there. 1.5 would be about right there. So at least half. Wonder what the most efficient way to do this is. Red grease. We had blue grease last time. Just have to glob it in there. You're gonna make an absolute mess. I'm thinking that it might have been less messy to just do it the old-fashioned way. That should be enough. Maybe that's too much. Place bearing small taper down over stem. Okay. Place selected grease savers onto piston. Put spool on top of, okay, well, we forgot to do that. Okay, spool is on top of bearing. Place selected grease savers onto piston when packing a bearing with an ID of 1 5/8 inch or larger. Oh, is that more than 1 5/8? Okay, so this is one piece. All right, what the hell is this? That's not right. Okay, we got a little picture there. So that and this. Oh, okay. All right. I see what's going on here. Okay, so yeah, this fills up this cavity in the center so you don't have a ton of grease going in there. So And then that goes over that because okay, so now this whole thing I guess goes in that. Ah, there we go. Is anything happening? Oh, we got some grease coming up over here. Okay, so this is working somewhat. I probably should have pushed this down and got the air out of it first. I'm still looking for grease to come up on this other side. Look at that. Look at all that grease coming out of there. It's not that this is making any less of a mess. Now, how do I get it out of here? Damn it. All right, I think we are sufficiently packed and have made a sufficient mess. This was a mistake. Anybody watching this, just do it by hand. I mean, maybe this did somewhat better job. I was expecting it to be a lot less messy, but yeah. Go ahead and pack this one while we're at it. Okay. Go. All right. All right, we'll leave that there until we need it. And then I'm going to go ahead and slam that oil seal in the hub. All right, let's get some of this excess grease out of the way here without making more of a mess than it already is. This is Permatex Ultra Black oil resistant gasket maker. This is what the service manual recommended. To put between the edge of the seal and the edge of the hub. Let's see what driver will work here. .5 maybe? Oh, since that's the biggest one I got, got my non-OSHA approved sledgehammer. Let me make it OSHA approved. There we go, fixed. All right, got that. Now we need some Permatex. Probably not too much. Assemble parts immediately while silicone is still wet. That looks like pretty good coverage to me. Now let's see how crooked we can get this. crooked. Looks like that's in over there. I wonder how far this needs to be driven in. Let me go look that up. Okay, book says flush. We're a little past that, but actually. So the sealing surface has a bit of pitting inside there, so if this is moved slightly in, maybe it'll clear that and have a better time sealing. Well, it's rubber, so hopefully there's a little bit of clearance in there. So the silicone has to dry for 1 hour, then tighten a torque valve. There's nothing to tighten here. Allow 24 hours to fully cure before filling with fluids or returning to surface. We're not going to fill the axle with fluids, not until this has got to go back on, and then the inner bearing has to go on with the lock nut and everything else before there's any fluid in here. So I think I can still do that without having to wait 24 hours. I just have to wait 24 hours before putting axle grease back in it, which is fine. Okay, according to the service manual, they recommend installing the hub and then the outer bearing and just pushing it in there with your fingers, tightening it down, and then putting in the lock nut, tightening that down. Then install the wheel and tire. After that is installed, then do the procedure of actually torquing down the bearing to get it to seat while spinning the wheel, and then putting the final lock nut on there and then torquing that down. And according to the book, the initial torque on the first nut should be 50 foot-pounds, and then put the lock nut in there, or the lock washer, this thing, and then tighten the lock nut, which is the nut on the outside of this, down to 100 to 150 foot-pounds, and then bend one of these tangs in over one of the nuts and then the other one back over another nut. I don't know how possible that's going to be, but so what we're going to do now is install the hub, kind of put this on, not necessarily finger tight. I mean, we'll tighten it down. We're not going to torque it yet. Step one, put the hub on here without actually damaging the oil seal. And I don't know if that got it or not. It did not. There's something very wrong here. Surely that's not the wrong size bearing. Just gotta use a hammer. All right, that should be good enough for now. We'll readjust when we get whenever we're ready to put everything back together. So now that the new seals are put in the hubs and the hubs are installed, it's time to clean up this axle. You can see that all of this rust here is going to have to be removed because that's going to catch on the seal and create the same problem that we're trying to solve. Found it interesting that somebody marked 63 on that, which since this is a 61 truck, maybe somebody broke the axle in it and this is a replacement. We do have some old grease we need to get off here, and then all of this, I've got to scrape all this crap off for the new, I don't know, like flange, wheel flange, hub, axle flange, gasket. I don't know what that thing is called, but we'll get this all cleaned up and then put back in there, hopefully without destroying the new seal we put in, and maybe get this truck mobile again. So I wiped the grease off and kind of cleaned this off with some brake clean, but this stuff here, I thought it was grease at first. This is like silicone. I don't know if this is some kind of RTV or tub and tile or what, but got to get that crap off of there. All right, got done cleaning this. Didn't turn out too bad. Still some rust on there, but that's about the best I could do. I got all that silicone junk off there. I went over this with a wire wheel a bit to try and clean that up. I think it'll probably be fine. The axle shaft is pretty pitted, but I don't think that's going to mess with the seals or anything. And this was the real bad area here. Now that cleaned up real well. At least all the rust that was sticking out of there, and then the splines and everything. I mean, that looks, you know, brand new out of the factory there. So, yeah, let's get this thing back in the truck. So this is another oddity. The end of that, of the axle shaft from the driver's side that we were just working on, doesn't match the end of this one, which is on the passenger side. That one has, you know, kind of a straight thing through there and one hole in the middle. This one has holes on either side. So definitely a different axle. Maybe this is the original 61 axle, and that axle that was labeled 63 was thrown in there because somebody broke the other one. Okay, so I've got the hub put back on the axle tube, and I just have it kind of finger tight screwed in there just to keep it in place. But I do have the manual here, and basically what they want me to do is spin this thing back and forth while tightening this nut down to about 50 foot-pounds, back it off a quarter to a third turn, and then install this locking tab thing, bend one of those tabs down to keep that first nut in place, and then torque this one down to 100 to 150 foot-pounds, and then bend one of the tabs up to keep it in place, and then after that we can stab the axle back in here. All right, that's 50 foot-pounds. And then I guess a quarter turn would be right about there. It's kind of quarter, third, somewhere around in there. Alright, so I've got this set on 130. It's at 100 to 150. That's kind of in the middle. Let's see if this works at all. So bend one tab over for each nut. That one I already sent down in there. And that other one I just bent over there, so I think we're good. Alright, I got the first nut in there, torqued down to 50 and then backed off. This thing rotates freely. I got the second nut torqued down to 130 foot-pounds, and I don't know if we can catch this or not. I got the tabs bent over. So this hub is now reinstalled. Now let's do the axle. Well, I have screwed this up literally. I thought I could use these cap screws on those hubs, but after reading in the manual, apparently there's two types of hubs, some that were designed for cap screws and some that were designed for what they're calling these tapered studs, which apparently has, I don't know if you can see that in the camera or whatever, but it does have a taper on it, similar to like a pipe thread. And I took both of these and screwed them into the hub, and on the cap screw, I could, even whenever it was almost all the way in there, I could still feel a slight back and forth motion on it. Whereas on the tapered stud, I mean, even 3 or 4 threads in there, I mean, it is locked tight. So we could probably get away with the cap screws, but with the vibration and everything, those would eventually just basically wallow out the holes, and then, you know, eventually we'd have the axle come undone from the hub. But I've got all but one of the old tapered studs, so I'm going to throw them in the ultrasonic cleaner, get them cleaned up real good, and then we'll go with them. I am missing one. I'll just have to use a cap screw. 7 others, I think it's going to be fine. It'll probably be fine with the cap screws, but I'm trying to do this as right as I can. So these don't look too bad. Spent about 30 minutes in the ultrasonic cleaner, but some of these are just really banged up, and this is probably the best one here, but I mean, you can see that those threads have been hit, and yeah, I don't feel good about reusing these. And I tried to look online basically everywhere for the same exact replacement. The best I could do was try and find a bigger bolt and then cut it down. I don't want to go through all that. I think these bolts will work just fine. I was concerned initially because there was a little bit of play whenever I was threading them in, because the threads are tapered inside the hub. But once I got them threaded in, at least all the way, you know, to match the old ones, they're pretty tight. So with 8 of those bolts, I'm not too concerned about this. I just want to get the axle back installed and move on to the next thing. So got the axle in, and you can see it turning the drive shaft there. So I think we're all good. I torqued these bolts down to as tight as I could get them. There was no torque spec, so I have no idea. And then, just for completeness sake, if anybody wants to know, these are 7/16 by 14 by 1.5 inch grade 8 cap screws. So I think it looks better than the old nuts sticking out of there, and I think it'll be fine. So I think that's probably going to do it for this video. So axle is in. Probably the next one I'm going to be chasing down the brakes on here so I can get the everything put back together here and get the wheel back on it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure and subscribe, and I'll try and get this next video out just as quick as I can.